I started these conversations to discuss leadership, mentorship, growth, and so much more from voices you may not have heard from before. I hope the conversations inspire you, motivate you, and give you something to think about. This is Leadership in Colour from myself, Shezak Val, supported and powered by me. Welcome to Leadership in Colour. I'm so pleased to have an ex-colleague of mine join today, Cynthia Callatin. We used to work together at Criteo. I think that's actually the first time I've said your surname,
Really?
to be honest with you. Yeah, because that's just the world that we live in now, right? Like we don't really introduce people by their full names anymore. I don't think I do anyway. But Cynthia, perhaps you could do a better job than I just did of introducing yourself in terms of who you are and what you do. I understand that you're still in global mobility, so I think you're a global mobility consultant
Yes,
and expat coach to Black women.
exactly.
Is that right?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, right. Maybe give a little bit more flavor to that.
Yes. So, well, thanks for having me. Very honored to be on the podcast with you. It's been such a long time. We've talked so much about so many topics that we're going to touch on today. So, my name is Cynthia. I have been living in Guadeloupe for the past 4.5 years. Shall I say thank you, COVID? A huge fan of international diversity topics like that. I operated a career change in 2014, and this is when I discovered HR and global mobility. And I thought, okay, this is exactly me, taking people to a new adventure. And I really loved it. Joined Criteo as an intern, oldest intern. I think I still own the title. I was 40 at the time. Joined as HR support and ended up staying 8 years and finishing as a global mobility manager. I loved it. And when I moved to Guadeloupe, it was a 48 hours decision based on my values that I want to be closer to my family, teenage children that I wanted them to learn more about the culture, and I wanted to work for my values. And I thought I still love global mobility, but I wanted to use it for women, especially. I also discovered that in the Caribbean, we are not in touch and we don't have access to certain type of information. So that's why I decided to still be global mobility, but as a consultant for companies, but also for university and schools, for youngsters who want to have an experience internationally, but also, as you said, expat coach for Black women because, been there, done that, know that a lot of women want to do it, but we don't have examples, we don't know how to do it. This is why I decided to do that.
Such a great introduction. So, what was life like before you were a 40-year-old intern? What was that journey like?
First of all, I have to say I was fortunate enough to have parents who believed in me. I was raised in a Caribbean family, very humble. I didn't have many mentors, but my mom was a good example. At the time, she used to work for a big dairy and pet food company, and she was one of the few Black women to have like a proper office role, not like cleaning or anything like that. And as such, I was so surprised. And to me, that was an example. And I was very curious. So from a very young age, I traveled. I visited England when I was 12. And I knew from that day that I would live in England. I didn't know how, when, but so international was always very present in my life. I studied English, wanted to be an English teacher, decided no, that's not for me. And I can say that my language skills and my curiosity, so as I said, led to London, started my career there. So I worked in various positions like customer service, project management. So I had various role, diverse role. And I think that made me the person that I am today. So I'm very much into, I can operate for different level, different angles. And I owe that to London as well, to my London experience. So yeah, it was, but always international and always advocating, always mentoring from university. So every role that I had where there was something about like an occasion to meet with youngsters and share journey and everything, I was always there. And until then, this is what I do.
So, talk to me about some of that mentorship
Yes.
then, because for some to mentor before they become a mentor, they are usually a mentee. So, was there a mentor for you
No,
that was?
that's the
Okay.
thing. I had people that I could look up to, but at the time there was no such a thing as mentor around me, and I maybe that's why I became a mentor from a very young age when I was at uni. because I didn't have a proper example of what I wanted to be. As I said, I looked up to my mom, I looked up to certain people, I was inspired by them, but nobody told me or showed me how to do it. I learned it as I went. So to me, transmission, to me, the knowledge is the power. I'm definitely a strong believer in that. And I was taught in the way my dad used to tell me, you are black, you are a woman, you're going to have to work twice as hard as everybody. And I defying that, I was like, no, we don't, we just have to be smarter, not work harder. So to me, to be a mentor is also to share what I've learned along the way to make things easier, and also to open doors and to show that there are opportunities. Because as I said, I'm in Guadeloupe and we are not showed the different path. And I'm here to say, you don't have to go abroad if you don't want to. And abroad doesn't have to be you crossing an ocean. It can be you going to Barbados, which is just around the corner. But at least to have the knowledge that certain thing exists. So to me, it's very important because we are building the new generation, and they need to be enlightened. They need to have access to, to information that are not shared to us. Not, we're not going to go into why, but I take it as my role because this is what I would have loved to have, and this is what I'm doing as well.
So you're the first person that I actually ever met who had global mobility in their title or in their job function. I didn't actually know that that role existed within organizations. I'm assuming that that's quite a common thing
Well,
for people to not know about.
you know what? Until now, when I come across young lady generally doing HR studies, when I tell them my role, they're like, "What? Really? Does that exist?" This is why I have to share my experience. To be honest with you, when I did my master degree, we were going through the various roles, and I was like, talent management, recruiting, payroll, and there was this one slide amongst the compensation and benefits, one single slide about global mobility, one. And I was like, okay, international languages, HR. Otherwise, if it wouldn't have been for that single slide, I'm not sure that I would have come across that title. And it was thanks to Creature, and until now, it's more known, but not every company has that role. Sometimes it's not really a function. You have other HR functions that cover that part, but it's only companies that have proper presence in other countries that have that role. But it's tiny. It's a tiny world. So you can imagine me when I became a global mobility manager going into areas and I introduced myself as global mobility manager, people looking at me like surprised because I was one of the very few diverse people, if I can say so. So yeah, no, it's not, it's becoming more known, but it's not a well-known HR function, unfortunately.
So that I understand that statement correctly. So there's the role isn't that widespread. Not that many organizations have
No.
them. But then the people that occupy those roles are generally what, white women?
Yes.
Or is that
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes, indeed. There are several things. Well, it's only recent that there are proper global mobility training, master degree. Otherwise, once again, it's just a tiny portion of HR master degree. And yes, because generally speaking, you have global mobility function within huge organization, the big four, whatever you name them. And I'm not going to say, of course, but the higher up the ladder, the less diversity you have. And in this type of position, majority are filled up by white women or white men. But this is just a reflection of the whole organization. So, and once again, because we have very little access to information, to me, this is also part of the reason you have little diversity within these roles. This is the lack of knowledge sometimes. And it's only because sometimes you came across somebody that had that position, or it's like me, you came across one slide in the HR master degree, and because you have the skills as well, because some people manage to go into global mobility because they have been in the company for a number of years, but they've never lived abroad, which to me doesn't make sense. So as well as having access to information, you need to have the experience of living abroad. And let's be honest, in my time, and you didn't have that many black people or other people having access to living internationally or studying internationally. So that as well reduce the number of, if I can say, black women or black men or diverse having access to this position. To me, that's one of the explanation. So yeah, we are very, very few. And having said that, I did come across two or three LinkedIn profile of black women, but generally based abroad in Canada, not necessarily in France. So there are more and more profile of women from diversity, but not that many. But once again, it comes to the fact that it's not very well known.
And how important is it that this role is filled with people from diverse backgrounds?
As as I said, representation matters. When you have somebody that look
Yeah.
like you that do that, you're like, oh, I can do that. Once again, I was in an event a couple of weeks ago, and it was something to do with ladies in the tech. I mean, young women. When I said my title, they were surprised, and they were like, "We didn't know that existed, and we didn't know that we could do that." So for everything that I do or that I share, it's a way of showing you can do it. You don't have to do it if it doesn't ring a bell, but if it does, you know that you have access to. So representation matters a lot.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that because I do think that growing up, my parents were very much in the thought that you either become a lawyer, you become a banker, or or you work in finance. Sorry, you set up your own business, or there's like very sort of like set career
Yes.
paths, right? So like you see specific things, but having worked for a number of decades now, I see there are loads of other opportunities, loads of other jobs that we don't really know about.
Yes.
And actually, those from minority backgrounds, or as I like to call them, global majority backgrounds, don't really, we're not
Yeah.
educated as much, or we weren't educated. Maybe we're more
Yes.
educated now. We weren't educated on all of those different roles and opportunities that were out there. So yeah, I totally agree with you. There is definitely a need for diversity in all functions, not just.
Yes, and if I may add as well, in terms of recruitment, people need to recruit people that are different. I mean, I don't know in the UK, but in France, especially, people tend to recruit people coming from certain university. So to me, they're using just clones. It's not, there's no diversity into that. And in certain companies, they will say, okay, only hire a profile that went to such and such university. You know, by default, the type of profile you will have, there will be absolutely no diversity. They will not go to the suburbs. You have talents there as well. No, they will go to big names. It sounds pretty fancy and everything. So yeah, you have people looking alike. So there's no diversity. And yes, if you are lacking, example, you know what you said about lawyer in my family. I mean, this is due to historical background. You have many Caribbean French people used to work in admin job. So as a black person, you knew either you were going to work for the post office or you would work in a hospital, or it was hospitality and care. So yeah, lacking diversity. And we're still very much operating in that model. So yes, by sharing, mentoring, organizing events with university, but also within company, bringing awareness to what diversity is and what it can bring to the company as such, to individual, but to the company.
So what is your actual job then? For people that haven't come across anybody in global mobility, what does that job, how does that help people within an
Okay.
organization?
So it really depends on the organization. So it can be an organization that want to hire an international talent. So somebody that is not actually located in their own country. So it can be, how to advise on, it can be on immigration process, on relocation package, because of course it's great to hire talent, but you cannot say to somebody you come in without nothing. It's also designing policies. It's also bringing awareness on, how do you say that? When you want to open an office in a different country, legally how it's operating. But it's also, to me, what I'm focusing on, it's international hiring, because this is what I did a lot of that at Criteo, and I saw the impact of hiring somebody from a different country, but not taking into account their background. But also, you have the skills, but you have the soft skills as well. You have a family, and how important for a company if you want somebody to operate from day one, if I may say so, you have to ensure that they are welcome, and you have to ensure that your organization is ready to welcome that person. So it can be on that. And one thing that I'm very close to is working with schools. So as I said, it's very good to promote Erasmus programs. So it's sending youngsters studying abroad, but do you help them? Do you explain to them what cultural shock is? Do you explain to them all the opportunities that come with them? Do you prepare them? So it's working with them like small modular workshop where I explain what it means, the attitude as well that they need to have. Like you need to be humble when you're coming to somebody else's country. You're coming with your own background, but you're becoming a foreigner, and sometimes they're not fully aware of that. You have to be respectful of the rules. So it's all to do with that from a company's perspective, but from schools and expats coach. So it's helping Black women who want to move abroad, but that are stuck into, fearness, lacking information. And with that program is enabling them to go from I'm thinking about it kind of dream project to I'm actually doing it. So providing them with the tools, the mindset, all the structure that I've lived when I moved to the UK, but also being global mobility consultant, I know the behind the scenes and what you need to be aware of, tax, immigration, something that sometimes they don't know. So this is what I do. So very exciting, very demanding, very human. So you need to be very patient, but so rewarding, so rewarding.
So if I was looking to say move to, let's say I want to move to
Yes,
Singapore, right? Just trying to use somewhere random, right?
yes,
Okay, I would approach you and I say to you, hey, look, I'm looking to move to Singapore. Within my organization, we don't have a mobility consultant or leader within the organization. Can we then contract you to help me
yes,
through that
indeed.
process?
Yeah, because I have,
Right.
being a HR, so I know how it works. So I can, of course, advise. And my role is not to try to win over the company, is try to make a win-win situation. So I have customers that are within organization and some that are not. So, but first of all, I always start with questioning the why, because sometimes people tend to fantasize about moving abroad, but without realizing what it means. So I always question the why behind that project. If it's personal, is it work related? Is it like personal related? But you need to have very strong basis because we're talking about a life change. So it comes with things, but definitely, yes, I do that, advise on how to operate.
Okay, so you advised me on why, and let's say the reason is because we want to open up an office there, and because I want to be the person to open up that office, and I want to bring my family with me because it's going to be at least a 3-year project or a 5-year project, whatever it is, right? This is all hypothetical. None of it, like just in case my wife's listening in. We're not moving to Singapore. Just in case my family's listening, like that's not happening as far as I know. Right? Okay. So let's just. So then, what are the things that you would help me with practically? Because when I think about moving to another country, like I've never lived abroad, right? My family moved over to the UK, and I have to say that I think that they're quite brave people. When I think about people moving abroad, I
Indeed,
always think of them as
indeed,
quite brave
it
people.
is.
And the list of things that you need to get done, I'm not easily overwhelmed, but I think
It
that
is.
actually me feels overwhelming. So walk us through the process.
Yes.
What do people have to think about?
Yes. So first of all, you need so about family dynamic, children's age, is the spouse working or not, depending on the country, if there is a visa process. Because when it comes to visa, this is when it can become tricky. What type of visa you need? Because sometimes visa can be linked to work or not with work. Sometimes you can have money linked with that as well. It is also about the life that you want to live because of course we must have we have like to have, and sometimes when you choose a country I'm always questioning, okay, in the country that you chose, will you be able to live the life that you want? because these are real questions, and how much it's going to cost you. So first of all, it's secure visa or not, if you're moving with a job or not, if you can move with a job or not. If you are not moving with a job, are you ready? Or you have to look into the local market in terms of your skills, in terms of everything, if you can apply there. If you are ready to operate a career change, sometimes it is needed, you but the spouse as well. What type of school system do you want for your children? Do you want an international school? Do you want a local school? Because this can have an impact in the future, in terms of taxes, how it operates. So I don't give like tax advice because this is very specific, but in terms of, you need to feel your obligation before you leave the country, the type of housing that you want, the price that, so you see everything is more or less. But first of all, we have to secure how you enter the country, because sometimes people are already far ahead and I'm like, hang on a second, you need to know first how you enter the country legally, how you stay in that country, how you work in that country legally and safely. Once that is secure, we can move along. But this is why the why, I question also the why on the purpose, what you are willing to do, the compromises, because move, even if it's something that you decide, it comes with full of compromises, not for you, but for the family as well. So it's logistic, but also for me, it's like personal development as well, because you're going through phases, and this is a new version of you that you're not aware of. So yeah, so I'm taking you through the step from the why to choosing the right country, to ensure that you can enter the country, to organize yourself like a retro planning. I need to do this and that and this and that, and how when I arrive, I need to settle in. So yeah, it can be overwhelming. It is. Having said that, it is when you don't know.
So, for those people who can't afford your services because their organization won't offer it or whatever, what's one bit of advice that you can give them if they're thinking about moving abroad? Just thinking about it.
First of all, I would say, okay, so I've been told, yeah, but you have AI and ChatGPT. Okay, they can give you general information, but sometimes they don't know, and they're not up to date. So what I would say is, first of all, choose a country, but choose the right country for you. And once again, really question your why. Why are you moving? Choose the country for you. Take as much information as you can. Once again, as how you enter the country. And when it comes to immigration, we are not joking with immigration. If there's one thing that you need to pay, if you cannot afford somebody's service, if there is immigration, and if the immigration is complex, hire somebody to do it, because you do not want to jeopardize your stay in a country that is not yours, that you don't know. So consolidate as much information as you can on how you enter the country, the job market, the housing market, the school system, how it works, and also interact with people. Ask them how they live, but be very careful with that, because somebody else's experience will not be yours. And sometimes people tend to forget how they arrive. When you arrived 10 years ago, maybe it was easy, but things have changed. So always taking into consideration that sharing experiences is good, but always take it with a pinch of salt. This is what that person experienced. So take it in. And once again, be smart. There's so many, Instagram, video, YouTube channels, but to me, the safety when it comes to immigration, and also religion. I was talking about that the other day. Religion can be, and we don't think about it, but it can be, whether we're religious or not. I always talk about criteria of when you're choosing a country, and this is one of them. Whether you're religious or not, are you willing to live in a country where majority of the country is not your religion? This is something to take into account. The cost of living, everything. So yeah, it's a long process, but don't rush into it. And also when it comes to money, don't say, I cannot afford it. Budget it. So list as many items as you can, so you have a fair view or an understanding of how it may cost. So it's also linked to doing as much research as you can on the main aspect and the key aspect of your life and your family's life as well, if that makes sense.
Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Very good advice and guidance. I think anybody that's looking to move might be a step further ahead thanks to your advice. So I do appreciate that. What's going on in Guadeloupe? So you decided to go to a place with awful weather, awful food, awful culture. No, I'm joking, of course. So you're basically in paradise, right?
Paradise with reality. So first of all, I've never planned to move to Guadeloupe. So my family are from Guadeloupe, and I arrived in 2021 in the midst of COVID, and I was in remote work slash vacation, and they told us we don't have to come back for the time being. And I realized, okay, so if I come back, I come back to my flat in the suburbs, single mom washing everywhere with teenagers, and I was like, is that really the life that I want? And I looked at my mom, my dad, my surroundings, and I was like, this is a key moment for my children. My son was 14 at the time, and I was like, I want him to grow up in a safe environment, in a sane environment. I want him to have male representation that matters. I want my daughter to be, as I said, when I say representation, my daughter was very conscious about her skin color. And to me, she was 11 at the time, and she was very mindful. She's like, yeah, I'm too dark skinned and everything. And that really hurt. That was hurtful to me. And in 48 hours, I was like, this is a life changing decision, but we're not going back. We ain't going back. We're staying there because I want to build memories for my children. I want them to know where they come from. I want them to know that their roots are in both Guadeloupe and Senegal and Paris. I want them to become mindful, educated, full aware young Black adults. So yeah, I decided to stay. So at the time I was working, so it wasn't hard for me. So I had to find the schools, and yeah, when you wake up in the morning and you see the sun and you see your family, it's fantastic. But comes reality. Reality is the cost of living. Reality is the power cut, water cut. Reality is we don't have access to information. Reality is you have many people that arrive in Guadeloupe thinking, hey, this is France. This is, yeah, France. And realize, it's just France on the paper. But realistically, we're not considered as French. So sometimes it's difficult. Reality is like me waking up at 4 o'clock every morning to drive my son to his school bus at 5 o'clock so he can arrive on the other side of the island where his school is at 7 o'clock. But once again, I wouldn't change it for the world because now they know that opening a tap and have running water is not a done deal. Switching on the light is not a done deal. Everything comes at a price. They're fully aware. And I know that wherever, whether they decided to stay or not, this will have an impact on their life. And when I see my son speaking Creole or, going with her machete, cutting bananas with it, and I was like, woo, this used to be like a suburban boy. It still is. But I'm very proud of that. It was tough for them, but I'm very glad for the experience and the knowledge, and for me to be fully aware of what it is to live in the Caribbean. This is island life. This is not paradise life every day. This is tough, but yeah, it's a great experience. Yeah, definitely.
It's always surprising how resilient children are because the reality
Yes.
is that some. Well, I didn't have to travel across an island to get to my school, but I did have to take two buses, and it took about an hour and 20 minutes. And the school that I went to was not particularly diverse or accepting of diverse backgrounds, I would say, in terms of secondary school. So there was definitely something there, but that resilience on your children's. So I mean, that sounds like a 3-hour journey, right?
Back and
When you're
forth, it's about 3.5 to 4 hours journey. So he said, "Don't worry, mom, I can sleep on the
mm,
bus." But realistically, if I would have thought about that like 5 or 6 years ago, I would have said, I'm not thinking they would do that, but they're doing it now. It's I'm
yeah,
not saying it's easy every day, but we all have our challenges.
but it's building something because my children, for example, I have this conversation with a number of my friends, and there's like, if they want something, we just go on Amazon and buy it, and
It
it
doesn't work like
comes
that.
tomorrow or they want. I'm assuming that doesn't work for you.
Yeah, this is one. I don't miss many things, but I miss sometimes quick access to things. Like for example, we needed
Yeah,
a school book beginning of year end. They ordered like 20 ridiculous books for God knows how many kids, so we had to wait a number of weeks to get the books. Once the frustration is gone, you're just like, this is what it is. But yes, you have to learn that you don't have access to everything, and what you want sometimes is expensive. This is why I say it's a very humbling yet rich experience. You don't take things for granted.
I think your children are going to appreciate things a little bit more than mine are. I do think that my children think that, my phone has elves in it, and that you just sort of press a button and then all of a sudden something is made and it's delivered over. I think it's, and that money is endless. It just sort of just comes out because because we've spoiled our children, right? Like it's not
Yeah,
their
we all
fault.
do.
It's my fault.
We all do.
But I do think that if we were forced into a situation where they have to learn that, as you say, water isn't a given, light isn't a given, and actually, if you need school books, it's not going to come immediately, then that builds a strength of character. Because when I was growing up, that was certainly the case. I didn't have everything available whenever I wanted it. We would only get a gift on our birthday. That was it. So it's quite, yeah. I imagine you're building quite strong characters out there.
This is what I'm hoping, but this is why also in terms of age. So when I have clients, and I always ask the children's age, because this is have to do because when you're relocating, so 14. So bearing in mind that my son was 14, but they knew Guadeloupe quite well. We never lived there, but they spoke the language. We had family there. But I always ask the question because depending on the child's age, the difference is major, and you have to make it a family project. But yes, it's not always easy. But once again, I consider myself very fortunate because we live in a very privileged area, which is not everyone's case. And you see, we have like mixed schools, and my son went to school where children have had parents incarcerated. He saw guns, things that he never saw when we lived in Paris. He saw them in here. And he became quite tough. And I remember he said, "Oh, I was so weak before." And I was like, You are not weak. This is not the type of environment where I'm not saying that there is violence everywhere. But because we are on a small island, everything seems bigger. So yeah, they have to toughen up in various ways. And yeah, I think they realize, even though they're privileged as well, but they realize that yeah, not everything is, as you say, granted. It's not like my son is very tall. His shoe size, oh, I don't even know. It's like 48, 14, 16. I don't know. It's so big. But I to find his shoe side in Guadeloupe is near impossible. So now I have to plan. So if either when somebody is coming from Paris, I order his shoes, because otherwise to find his shoe size in the store here, first of all, it's expensive, but it's difficult. So yeah, you learn. You accommodate once you know where this is. This is another thing. You need to know where you're moving to. And a holiday destination, your favorite holiday destination, doesn't mean that this is the perfect country for you to live. Because what once you can accommodate for over a 3 weeks period is not the same as what you can accommodate on a daily basis.
I found the sound clip that I'm going to send to my wife, which is that one exactly. Because 5 minutes into getting into any destination, she does ask, "So I think we could live here. Do you think we could live here?" So the closing tradition is for you to name the podcast.
Oh,
I've got something here,
yes, then.
but I'll come to that only as an emergency if you can't think of something. So what is it that you'd like to call the podcast?
I wanted to say something about take matters into your own hands and don't wait until,
Yeah,
yeah, take matters into your own hand. You can do it. Yes.
let's do that one. We're going to do that. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode, Take Matters in Your Own Hand. And yeah, I hope the listeners took away from it exactly what I did, which is some great practical advice.
Thank you so much for having me. And I hope to see a lot more episodes and a lot more voices and experiences. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.